Hello everyone, welcome to Story Time in Seacliff. I'm reaching down. Now, what Oberon showed us yesterday was a box with an address or something on it. It was something that was delivered. So, this is the name of the story. Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. Now this is a story I usually tell around Valentine's Day, but it's such a great story, it can be told any time of the year. So I'm going to read it to you guys now, all right? Okay. Mr. Hatch was tall and thin, and he didn't smile very much at all. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, he would leave his brick house and he'd walk 8 blocks to the shoelace factory where he worked. At lunchtime, he'd sit alone in a corner. He would eat his cheese and mustard sandwich, and he would drink a cup of coffee. Sometimes he would bring a prune for dessert. After work, he would make 2 stops. He'd go to the newsstand to get his paper, and then he'd stop at the grocery store to buy some fresh turkey that he would have for dinner. After supper, he would read his paper, take a shower, and then go to bed very early. He keeps to himself is what all his friends, well, I don't know if you call them friends, people he worked with, and his neighbors would say. Well, one Saturday, when Mr. Hatch was outside sweeping his porch, I guess, he got a surprise. On the porch, the mailman, the postman, was handing him a box. And he said, "Is this for me?" And Mr. Gooper, that's what the man's name was, the letter carrier, yes, it is for you." "Oh, thank you," said Mr. Hatch. He had never gotten such a delivery before. He tore off the paper, and inside was another box. And he opened that box, and inside there was a heart. He opened up the heart, and it was filled with chocolates. Oh, he was so excited. And he noticed there was a little card that fell out. He reached down and he read it, and it said, "Somebody loves you." Well, he was very, very happy. He wondered and wondered, who could have sent me this? He was all alone. He really didn't have friends. And yet someone had sent him this and said, "I love you." Well, he put the box on the coffee table, and he was about to start dusting, which he usually did on Saturday, when he said, "I have a secret admirer." And then he did something he had never done before. He began to dance and laugh, and he circled around the living room, and he was singing. He was so happy, and he had a nice piece of chocolate too. Well, after supper, Mr. Hatch did not bother with his paper. He decided instead that he would bake brownies. And he did, and he invited all his neighbors. Oh, the people could smell the brownies cooking, and they all came, and he said, "Come join us, come join us." And sure enough, someone said, "Is there anything to drink? Do you have milk?" So he said, "Let me make some lemonade." Well, before long, the backyard was filled with children and their parents, Mr. Gooper, the postman. And it turned out they did this every weekend. Mr. Hatch now had so many friends. Well, things went along until one day, weeks and weeks, maybe months after, Mr. Hatch had a knock at the door. It was Mr. Gooper. All the children and the parents are laughing out there. And Mr. Gooper looked very, very upset. He said, "What's the problem?" Mr. Hatch was such a kind person. He saw right away Mr. Cooper had a problem. He said, "I made a mistake. Remember that box I delivered to you? The big box with the heart inside?" And Mr. Hatch took a deep breath. He got a little upset. He was a little frightened what would come next. it wasn't meant for you. I sent it, somebody sent it to around the corner, and the label was off, and I thought it was for you. I'm sorry." So Mr. Hatch said, "Oh no, I ate the chocolate." "Oh no, that's okay. Just give me the old box." Oh, he was so upset. Mr. Cooper took a deep breath and said, "I'm really sorry," and he left. He headed down the sidewalk, and Mr. Hatch came running after him and said, "There was a card inside. Maybe you want it." And sure enough, it was the card that said, "Somebody loves you." Well, that night, he had his supper. He went to bed very early. The next morning, he went to work, and he brought his cheese and mustard sandwich. He hadn't had it in a long time. And he ate all by himself. He didn't want to be around anyone. He was so sad. Well, the next day was Saturday, and Mr. Hatch woke up, and he didn't know what was going on. It was a bright and sunny day, and he went to sweep the porch, and he couldn't believe his eyes. All over the porch were red and white hearts and pink bows, and there were boxes of candy up and down the steps. And in the front yard, it was filled with his neighbors, his new friends, his people from work. There were happy, smiling people, and they held up a huge sign that read, "Everybody loves Mr. Hatch." And Mr. Hatch dabbed a tear away with his handkerchief, and he said, "I do believe that somebody loves me after all." And then he smiled, and then he laughed, and then he hurried down the steps to be with all his friends. And that's the end of the story of Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. All right, all that talk about chocolate. I wonder if it's going to be a chocolate day for us. It has been, you know. Okay, let me see. All right, vanilla. As always, the faithful Joseph, Teddy, Amelia, Molly, Alice, Graham, Audrey, and Lila. That looks good. All vanilla. Chocolate, Riley, Ben, B, Bevy, Colin, and Emmett. Let me count. 7 vanilla. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 chocolate. Okay. The first time in a long time we have a little more vanilla. Okay. There we go. So today, a dear friend of ours is having a birthday. Not exactly today, but during the week. So we thought we'd celebrate today. So that's our dear friend Paul. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paul. Happy birthday to you. Right? Oberon, may I have the clue? Oh, it's a beautiful one. Look at how pretty. Oh, how pretty is this? All right. Tomorrow's story is somehow going to be involved with this lovely creature. Thank you, Cameraman Dan. Thank you, Oberon. And thank you, all our wonderful listeners, viewers. Remember, I love you all very, very much.